31 of Numbers. From 28, 29, and 30 are all part of the Law of Moses, and you've read that at home. So we are in 31. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward thou shalt be gathered unto thy people. Okay, remember Moses is not allowed to go across the river. He cannot go into the promised land. We've talked about Moses' sin and what that means. Moses was totally exasperated with the people, and the people were grumbling as normal because they had no water and they were just big gripers. And Moses was told to speak to the rock, and water would gush out of the rock for the people. And remember, the very first time that happened, he was told to strike the rock. He struck it with his rod, and water gushed out, and everybody had water. It was a type of Christ. It was a picture of something that we'll see when Christ is supplied for us. He is that water. He's that living water that you'll never be thirsty again. It's a picture. Okay, remember God is in many ways treating us like little kids. And so we have a picture here of Christ, and he struck Christ. Christ was the rock of ages that was cleft, that was cleaved, that was broken in two for us. And when later people are still griping and still wanting water, Moses was simply told to speak to the rock, and the rock would gush water. Well, he struck the rock, and the water gushed out, and everybody had water. But Moses was not permitted now to go into the promised land. Now, he was still God's friend. God will bury him after Deuteronomy. We'll see that. God doesn't throw Moses away, but he doesn't let him in. And I think that's really interesting. First of all, why? Jesus doesn't need to be crucified over and over again for my sin. And when I am in need of a Savior, he is already my Savior. I don't have to offer him as a sacrifice for my sin over and over again, ever. He gave his life once and then rose to the place of highest honor. So he doesn't need to continuously be on the cross. I don't need a crucifix with Christ always on the cross for me. It was a once and done sacrifice. He was of infinite value, infinite dignity, and he suffered infinitely because he was God. And so he suffered infinitely once. You don't have to infinitely suffer infinitely. And so we see that Moses has one more job here before he dies, before he's gathered to his people. It's an idiom meaning to die. And that is that they are to avenge themselves on the Midianites. Do you remember Balaam? Do you remember Balaam was trying to curse Israel but couldn't do it? Every time he opened his mouth, the blessing came out. And then the very next thing you see, the Midianites, where they infiltrated Israel, and Israel was going towards other gods. So there wasn't a way that they could attack them full front, but they could infiltrate, and the Midianites are now for this reason. Okay, so let's continue to read and see what's up. Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites, and afterwards you shall be gathered to your people. Moses spake to the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and go against the Midianites to avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000 throughout the tribes of Israel shall you send to war. Remember, there were 40, 30, 40, 50, 40s, 30s, 20s of armed soldiers in the thousands, and we're only sending 12 here, 12,000. So they were delivered out of the thousands of Israel, 1,000 from every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, and from Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest to the war, with holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. Interesting, the priest was in front blowing the trumpet because God was the first fighter in that war. God was ahead of all of them. They were simply going, but God was the one that was fighting. And they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. They slew the kings of Midian, besides the rest of them that were slain, Evi, Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also the son of Beor they slew. Interesting. Balaam was in the middle of that. Okay, and he dies with the rest of them. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captive and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods. They burnt their cities wherein they dwelt and all their goodly cattle with fire. They took all the spoil and their prey, both the men and the beasts. And they brought the captives, the prey, and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp of the plains of Moab, which were by Jordan near Jericho. So this is where they're going to cross the river. Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains of the thousands and hundreds, and came from the battle. And Moses said, Have you saved the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord. So we finally see Balaam. Balaam is the one who connived all this. He couldn't curse them. God wouldn't let him open his mouth and curse, but he had a curse in his heart towards these people. And so he was like, how can we battle them? We can't battle them from the front, so let's battle them from within. And so he sends these Midianite women in there on purpose as soldiers. That's really important, that they didn't have weapons, but they came nonetheless to destroy Israel from the inside. Okay? So they are, in this case, these are not, though they're captives, these are not innocent. These women are not innocent. These ones that came in sneaking around, sleeping with all the guys, these are not innocent women. And do you abide without the camp 7 days? Whatsoever have killed a person, whatsoever has touched any slain, purify yourselves and your captives the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. Purify all your raiment, and all that's made of skins and work of goats are and thing is made of wood. Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war which were of the battle, This is the ordinance of the Lord which commanded Moses. Only the gold, silver, and brass, iron, tin, and lead, everything that may abide the fire, you shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it should be purified with water separation, and you abide the fire, and neither shall go through the water. And you shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and you shall be clean. Afterward come to the camp. See, just fighting this war made them filthy. They weren't even allowed, because God had said these people will be destroyed. It was almost like there was dirt attached to them, and just going to battle against them made them to where they could not even worship God, and they had to wait. There was a separation, and then they had to wash their clothes, all in the, again, pictures like we saw. And the Lord said to Moses, Take the sum of the prey that was taken, both man and beast, thou and Eleazar the priest, the chief of the fathers of the congregation. Divide the prey into 2 parts, between them that took the war upon them that went out to battle, and between all the congregation. And levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men which went out to the battle, 1 soul 500, both of persons and of cows, beeves as cows, and donkeys and sheep. Take their half and give it to Eleazar priest for a heave offering to the Lord, and the children of Israel half. And thou shalt take a portion of 50 persons of the beeves, the asses, the flocks, all manners of beasts, and give them to the Levites, which keep charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. And Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. And the booty, being the rest of the prey which the men of war had caught, were 600,000 and 75,000 sheep, 12,000 beeves, so all the flocks, 1,000 asses, and 32,000 persons in all the women that had not known a man by lying with them. Okay, so these are the virgins that didn't sneak into the camp, were not sent as reconnaissance or as essentially secret agents. Okay, and the children. And 39, and the asses, and the persons were 16,000, which the Lord tribute 30 and 2 persons. Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's heave offering, unto Eleazar the priest, and the children of Israel half. Now the half that pertained to the congregation was 300,000, 30,700 sheep, 36,000 beeves, and 30,000 asses, and 516,000 persons. Even the children of Israel's half, Moses took 1/4 both of men and beasts, and gave it to the Levites, which kept charge of the tabernacle. And the officers were thousands of the host, and came near to Moses. And they said to Moses, The servants have taken the sum of the men of war under our charge, and there lacketh not one man of us. We have therefore brought an oblation to the Lord, which every man had gotten, the jewels of gold, and chains, and bracelets, rings, earrings, tablets, to make an atonement for the souls before the Lord. Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of them, even the wrought jewels, and all the gold of the offering they offered up to the Lord, of captains of thousands, of hundreds, of 16,750 shekels. For the man of the war had taken spoil every man for himself. Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of the captains and brought it into the tabernacle congregation for a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. Okay. So this was the last act that they did before they enter into across the Jordan to Canaan. Okay, these people were at battle to God. It was God that they were opposing by attacking. They knew that God had delivered these people, and that these people were to be blessed. And Balaam, of all people, knew, because every time he opened his mouth, there was a blessing, and he knew that it was God, the creator God, the real God. He knew that it was he who had decided to bless these people, but because he was hired by the king and he was trying to do something, he connived it. That's why it's not just always so clearly shown. You have to read into it and see what actually happened. Everything is not, well, he did this and he did this and he did this. He tried to curse, he couldn't do it, and so he found a plan B. How can we battle these people? And Balaam was involved with all of it. And the Midianites were what they used. And so God said, the Midianites have sealed their fate. Okay, and there's no more Midian. After this time, there was no Midian. The nation of Midian was gone. Like, it was wiped off. Okay, so 10 years later, 100 years later, 1,000 years later, there's no trace of Midian. Okay, this was their last day. And nations are still like that. There are last days. God determines he will let people sin go and go and go and go, and there will be a last day. There is a day when because of your offense, because of your sin, God will end that time. It's not because people are not immediately punished for their sin, they don't think there will ever be punishment. They don't think that it's anything. In fact, there are scads of people who don't even believe God exists, because otherwise, if he would have existed and I decided to do my own thing, he should have destroyed me, and he didn't, so therefore he must not be anything. He's a fairy tale. Well, Midian went on and on and on, and then Midian was destroyed. Now, remember, these pictures of this wilderness wanderings is us. This is a picture of us. This is a picture of how we treat God, and there will be times that God will judge. Okay? All right, so we're going to see through Numbers 34, so 2, 3, and 4, and then we're only having 11 chapters in Deuteronomy. Everything else was law. Okay? So we're going to read just the first 11 chapters of Deuteronomy, and if I've counted it right, we will end the last chapter of Deuteronomy on the last day of school. How about that for awesome? Okay, so I hope you have a great day. I love you all.